This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Colfer. I'm the Director of Research here at the Institute. A very warm welcome to those who are joining us in person here in full Technicolor in Northwood Georgia Street, and indeed a very warm welcome to those joining online. It is a real treat to have our speaker, Governor Martin O'Malley, with us. A very warm welcome to the Institute, but I know it's not a welcome to Dublin because you're basically local here. You're coming back and forth so much, so it's really lovely to have you here. Thanks for making the time in your busy schedule. We're going to be talking about data and AI, how to govern for results in the information age. In a moment, I'm going to hand over to our colleague, my new friend, Enda O'Kane from the Business Post Group, who's collaborating with us on this event. And we're delighted to be doing this, and thanks very much. Before doing that, I'm just going to go through the housekeeping very quickly. We have an hour together. I'm going to invite the Governor after your introduction to speak for up to 15 minutes. Take it or leave it. You can stop sooner if you like. And then we'll just open the floor over to questions and answers. So we'll privilege those who are here with us in the group, trying to have it as informal as possible, and indeed taking questions online. So those online, please remember to put in your questions. Our discussion is on the record, and if you do put in a question or if you raise your hand here, and if you have an affiliation you can share, please do so. Now, everybody is special and important, but I do want to acknowledge our newest board member, Leo Varadkar, who's joining us today. Very, very happy you've been able to take time to be on our board, Leo, and it's a real honour for us that you're both taking on that role and that you're here this morning. So, without further ado, Enda, you might like to introduce our speaker and we can kick off.
Yes, I'll be very brief. We essentially took the opportunity while Governor O'Malley was in Ireland this weekend, and thank you all very much for coming together. With our group as part of the Irish Management Institute and Business Post strategy, and we've also had a very strong personal relationship with Governor O'Malley, who's been patron of our Global Economic Summit in Killarney, and we've got to know him in the process. But he's been former Mayor of Baltimore and former Governor of Maryland, but most recently he was President Biden's Commissioner on Social Security. I think, Martin, you said you had a budget of 1.4 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. Quite staggering. You know, as a public servant and a top executive, he's really pioneered a new way of performance-driven government, you know, driven by data at a level both local and nationally. So it's really primarily the reason we're here today. It's the facts don't lie. It's data and it's information and government. And that's really, we thank you, Governor, for coming and sharing our insights today. And what more can I say except over to you at this point. You're very well known in Ireland and very loved and respected as former Taoiseach of the O'Malley clan, I might add.
There's one further word of health warning. It's for you, Governor, and for everybody. For Governor O'Malley and everybody, that when we're speaking, if you can speak directly as best you can into these little guys, the little L machine, both for the record and for those at home. And I think I said it, but if not, our discussion is on the record. Over to you, Governor.
Thank you. And thank you all. It's good to be back in this building. I was here many years ago in a world that looked a lot more stable from where we sat there than the one that we look at now, especially when you all look across the ocean to my country, the United States of America. It is awesome to see former Taoiseach Varadkar. Thank you for taking the time to be here this morning and for all of the tremendous public service you gave not only to the Republic of Ireland, but really to the world when you were on that stage for Ireland. It was so, those were very good days when we would welcome you to Washington, regardless of who the president was. And so it's great to be with all of you. This is my third trip to Ireland this summer. My wife said, how can you go, why have you gone there 3 times this summer? I said, it's good to go to a stable republic where the rule of law is still honored every now and again, you know? And, you know, sometimes on the way back in last time, they were waving me through customs. I said, come on, look at my social media posts, will you? How can you let me back into the country after all of the things I've been saying and doing in this moment in American history? Let me share with you, you know, just kind of a few thoughts as we tee up this conversation, and I really do appreciate your generosity in having me here. Enda talked in his kind of introduction about performance measurement, measuring what our government does, how it does it, whether or not it's actually doing it, whether it's delivering what I would call the goods of the republic that make a republic worth having. What are those things? It is certainly individual freedom in speech, but it's also clean air and clean water. It's the quality of the education and the economic opportunities that we're able not only to enjoy ourselves, but to be able to give to our kids. That is that, I think, a universal recognition and definition of what it means to produce the goods of a country and a republic that make her worth defending and worth having. In our country, and I guess there's another good though, and that is called political economy. In other words, to realize that our economy is not money, it is people. And in our country, we fell down pretty badly. And for the first time since the Second World War, from roughly the mid-80s, and for the next ensuing years, we created an economy where increased earnings only went to the very, very few at the very, very highest levels. That created for the first time in the United States a sinking sense among a lot of my fellow Americans that tomorrow was going to be worse than today. That the opportunities my children will enjoy will be less than what my fathers and mothers gave to me. And it was against that backdrop that President Obama was elected. And many of us thought that that signaled a great movement forward for the United States. You know, we shattered a racial barrier to the presidency that derives from our original sin of slavery, and we were really going with this was a new era. This was a new United States. You saw the throngs that turned out to see our president all over the world, including here in Dublin. And yet, what a lot of us did not appreciate at that time in the United States was his election signaled in the minds of many of our fellow Americans and was a reminder every single day what they were already feeling. That they could not afford to send their kids to college like their parents could afford to send them. That their children will take a lot longer before they even have the money necessary to buy a home. And it also signaled for many of our neighbors who are white the sense that things are going to be worse because my country is becoming more diverse. And then we saw Trump come back after that. The only way that fascist appeals work is when there is enough despair in the air and when there is so much fear in the air that people are willing to revert to a strongman, an authoritarian, in order to put the brakes on a future that they fear will be worse for them. That's where you see all of the other indicia of fascism come to play, you know, whether it's the celebration of an aggressive masculinity, whether it is the encouraging of violence against political opponents, whether it's the scapegoating of others who are not like us. And all of those things have come out in spades in the first Trump administration, and now they're back with a vengeance. I'm sure I mentioned outside to the Taoiseach, you guys must have, men and women must have looked across the Atlantic at us after President Biden's election and breathed a sigh of relief that perhaps this cancer, which had come at us, we had finally beaten into remission. But now it's come back, and it's come back faster and stronger, and with a greater blitzkrieg speed than any of us thought possible. the firing of inspector generals in every federal agency, the decapitating of our federal civil service. Today, I think it's going to see in the United States of America the greatest departure of senior executive civil servants ever before in the history of the Republic. In my own agency, the Social Security Administration, the one that President Biden honored me with leading for that last year, they've seen a greater loss of staff in just 90 days than they had seen in the prior 90-year history of their agency. And in all of this, that check and balance that we thought was the Supreme Court seems to be getting tacit approval by undermining the courts of, where cases are first presented to federal judges across the country, making decisions that some of their colleagues in their dissent say, this is irreconcilable with the longer history and case precedent and the Constitution. So where does this leave us? The good news is this: 50% of Americans are every bit as appalled as you all are when you watch what we're doing to our country and undermining it. The good news is this, that for all of the denials of climate change from the current occupant of our White House, Donald Trump, the truth is the world only spins forward, and global markets are all moving to renewable energy. The good news is this, that the Congress of the United States is held by Donald Trump's loyalists, but only by a margin of about 6 seats, only 6. And in the 2 special elections that have happened, the Republican margins in those districts were cut in half, from 30 plus districts to 15 plus Republican. And there are about 43 seats in Congress that Republicans won by less than 15 points. So I have every reason to believe that in the paddle left and paddle right that has become the behavior of the American electorate, that you're going to see enough people say, I might have voted for Trump, but I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for the price of my health care to go up, which it is happening now because of the damage that he's put in the big, beautiful bill for billionaires to Medicaid programs, which gave so many people, including my own state, a state of about 7 million people. We extended healthcare coverage to 750,000. And seniors who depend on Medicare are seeing their trust in that shaken. Social Security, which hasn't missed a payment in 90 years, a monthly payment in 90 years, is this month, for the first time, going to see paper checks no longer going to about 750,000 people who didn't have banking services either because they lived in rural areas or the center cities of places like Baltimore where banks don't exist. That'll be, if they actually go through with cutting off the paper checks, that'll be the biggest interruption of Social Security benefits. And all of this has now created a situation where among the democracy, the 3 things that are rubbing people the most wrong about this new fast-moving Trump administration is the way they're messing with healthcare, the way they're messing with Medicare, the way they're messing with Social Security. And there will come a time, given the logs that these guys, and most of the people in Doge are guys, as I read the newspaper, they have kicked so many logs out of the base of the Jenga towers of the public institutions we once thought unshakable, that there are going to be interruptions that the people felt would never happen to public institutions that they just assumed were indestructible. I was talking with a group of people very concerned, Irish people, who, and by the way, thank you for your generosity and your genuine concern about my country, and keep pulling for us. We need you. Keep the home fires burning. But she said, what was the phrase she used? She said, well, this is what your neighbors voted for twice, so now they're going to have to learn. And there's a bit of that going on right now. What concerns me most, what also concerns me deeply about this moment, though, is this. I mean, you saw some of that behavior yesterday in the Ryder Cup, right? By the way, congratulations. Congratulations. Maybe there's a metaphor for the geopolitics of our time, to the fact that an Irish guy, Shane Lowry, sunk that clutch putt in the end. Maybe that says something about the way in this moment that, you know, the stable republics, like the Republic of Ireland, you know, need to point to that place on the horizon where we're all going, where we respect one another and the dignity of every person. But the behavior that I saw just coming through the TV of some of the people there, some of the Americans cheering the players, this moment has unleashed an ugliness in our character as a country that we're going to have to work a long time to repair, not only, you know, within the fabric of our own society and the eyes of our own children who watch this behavior on a daily basis. Donald Trump has given people permission to act in really cruel and appalling ways to one another in our country. And that's what we're in the throes of right now. You know, there was a justice, and by God, his mother knew what she was doing, naming him Learned Hand. There was a federal judge from Massachusetts named Learned Hand, and he was a great, you know, great writer of opinions. They read like prose, and having been to law school, as some of you have gone to law school probably, you can attest to the fact that most judges are not gifted writers, and reading some of those cases can be excruciatingly boring. But Learned Hand, many years ago, once wrote, "This much I think I do know, that a society so ridden that the spirit of moderation is gone, no court can save. That a society where that spirit flourishes, no court need save. That in a society which evades its responsibilities by thrusting upon the courts the nature of that spirit in the end will perish. And what is the spirit of moderation, he asked? It is the temper which does not press a partisan advantage to its bitter end, which can understand and will respect the other side, which feels a unity between all citizens, real and not the factitious product of propaganda, which recognizes their common faith and their common aspirations. In a word, which has faith in the sacredness of the individual." For a time, that faith has gone missing in the hearts of many of my neighbors. I'm hopeful that we will get it back, though. And as Bonhoeffer said, in another time, but a time similar to the one we now face in the United States, there are three things for any moral human being to do in these times: pray, act, and wait patiently for God's time. And so that's what many of us are doing. And we do so with an awareness that you all are waiting for us as well. Thanks.
This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.